mall security guard found a 9-year-old girl sleeping in the bathroom stall. When he asked where her parents were, she showed him terrifying photos that sent shivers down his spine. Michael Donovan glanced at his watch, 11:42 p.m. Just 18 more minutes and his shift would be over. 18 more minutes until he could retreat to his sparse one-bedroom apartment, pour 2 fingers of whiskey, and fall asleep to whatever late-night program flickered across his television screen. The mall's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a flat, unforgiving glow that made his navy blue security uniform appear almost black. "Hey Mike, you want to take the last round? I gotta finish processing those incident reports from the teenagers we caught shoplifting in Sears." Randy Jensen's voice crackled over the radio clipped to Michael's shoulder. Michael sighed, reaching for the radio. "Copy that. I'll do the final sweep." His voice had a particular quality to it. Quiet but authoritative, the remnant of 15 years on the police force. "Thanks, man. I owe you one." Randy's relief was palpable even through the static. Michael began his methodical patrol through the 2-story shopping center. His footsteps echoed in the empty corridors as he passed darkened storefronts. Mannequins frozen in fashionable poses, jewelry secured behind metal grates, electronics removed from display cases. The mall at night had always reminded him of a museum after hours. Everything preserved behind glass, waiting for the next day's crowds. There was comfort in the routine. Check the emergency exits. Ensure the food court was properly closed down. Verify that all stores had their security gates locked. Michael had been doing this for 3 years now, ever since he'd handed in his badge and gun after the Keller incident. The memory still ambushed him sometimes. A domestic disturbance call gone horribly wrong. A 6-year-old boy caught in the crossfire when the father drew an unexpected weapon. Michael had been first through the door. His therapist said he couldn't have known, couldn't have prevented it, but the knowledge did little to ease the weight he carried. The security job was simpler. No life or death decisions. Just empty corridors and the occasional teenage troublemaker or lost child to deal with. As he approached the restrooms near the east entrance, Michael noticed something unusual. A thin strip of light beneath the women's bathroom door. The cleaning crew wasn't scheduled for this section until after midnight, and most shops had been closed for over an hour. "Probably just Mariana starting early," he muttered to himself, referring to the head of the night cleaning staff. Still, protocol was protocol. Michael knocked firmly on the bathroom door. "Security. Anyone in there? The mall is closed." Silence answered him. He knocked again, louder this time. "This is mall security. If someone's in there, please respond." The mall closed at 11 p.m. When no answer came, Michael reached for his radio. "Randy, it's Michael. I'm at the east entrance bathrooms. Lights on in the women's restroom, but no response to my calls. I'm gonna check it out." "Copy that," Randy responded. "Need backup." Michael almost laughed. The most dangerous thing he'd encountered in 3 years was a raccoon that had somehow found its way into the loading dock. Negative. Probably just a light left on. "I'll handle it." "Mall's closed." He called out one final time before pushing the door open slowly. Security coming in. The bathroom was standard mall design. Beige tile walls, fluorescent lighting, a row of sinks with spotty mirrors, and 5 stalls against the back wall. The place smelled of industrial cleaner and hand soap. "Hello? Anyone in here?" That's when he heard it. A small, sharp intake of breath from the last stall. Michael's hand instinctively moved to where his service weapon used to be, finding only the empty air at his hip. Old habits. "I can hear you in there," he said, softening his tone. "I'm not going to cause any trouble. I just need you to come out. The mall is closed for the night." No response, but he could sense movement behind the stall door. Michael approached slowly, his rubber-soled shoes squeaking slightly against the tile floor. "Look, I understand if you're in some kind of situation. I can help, but you need to let me know what's going on." When he reached the stall, he noticed something peculiar. A small, worn purple backpack with a unicorn patch peeking out beneath the door. His heart sank. A child. "Hey there," he said, his voice gentler now. "My name's Michael. I'm a security guard here. Are you okay in there? A beat of silence followed, then a small voice, tight with fear. Are you going to make me leave? Female. Young. Maybe 8 or 9, Michael guessed. Well, the mall is closed, so eventually, yes. He crouched down to seem less intimidating, even though the door separated them. But I'm more concerned about making sure you're all right. What's your name? Another long pause. Emily. Hi, Emily. Nice to meet you. Can you tell me why you're hiding in the bathroom? I'm not hiding. The defensive response came quickly. I'm just resting. Michael nodded, though she couldn't see him. Resting. I see. In a mall bathroom stall at almost midnight during a sleet storm. Yes. Her voice was small but determined. Michael considered his options. Mall protocol was clear. Call the police. Report a minor without supervision. Let them handle it. But something about the girl's voice, the fear barely contained beneath her stubborn responses, gave him pause. Emily, are you alone? Where are your parents? The silence that followed lasted so long that Michael thought she might not answer at all. Finally, the lock on the stall door clicked, and it swung open slowly. The girl who emerged was small for her age, with dark blonde hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her navy blue puffer jacket was zipped up to her chin, and she wore jeans with sneakers that lit up when she took a tentative step forward. What struck Michael most were her eyes, large brown, and holding the wary gaze of someone much older than 9 years. My mom is at home, she said carefully, clutching a small digital camera in her right hand. With James. James is your dad? Michael asked, staying at her level, one knee on the bathroom floor. Emily shook her head. My stepdad. There was something in the way she said stepdad that raised the hairs on the back of Michael's neck. A subtle flattening of emotion, as if she were carefully controlling her reaction to the word. And do they know where you are right now? Emily's eyes dropped to the floor. No. Michael nodded slowly. I see. And how long have you been here, Emily? Since the stores were still open. She scuffed one light-up sneaker against the tile. I bought a pretzel with my allowance, which meant she'd been hiding in the mall for at least 2 hours. Michael glanced at her backpack, noticing now that it was stuffed full, the zipper straining against its contents. That's a long time to spend in a bathroom. Were you planning on staying here all night? Emily lifted her chin slightly. Maybe. I don't know yet. Michael recognized the signs. A child in trouble but unwilling or afraid to ask for help directly. He'd seen it countless times on the force. The key was to build trust slowly. Well, it's pretty cold outside, and this bathroom isn't the most comfortable place to spend the night. He offered a small smile. How about we go to my office? It's warmer there, and I've got some snacks. You look like you could use something more substantial than a pretzel. Emily studied his face intently, as if searching for some sign of deception. Her fingers tightened around the camera she held. Will you call them? The question was pointed, direct. Who? Your parents. She nodded, her expression serious. Eventually, we'll need to let someone know where you are, Emily. People are probably worried about you. A shadow crossed her face. No one's worried. Why do you say that? Instead of answering, Emily suddenly held out the digital camera she'd been clutching. Do you want to see why I can't go home? Something in her tone made Michael's stomach tighten. He nodded, taking the camera carefully from her small hands. Yes, I'd like to see. Emily reached over and pressed the review button, then stepped back, watching his face intently as he looked at the first image. The photograph showed a living room in disarray, a coffee table overturned, books scattered across the floor, what looked like the remains of a shattered picture frame. Michael had seen similar scenes responding to domestic disturbance calls. He looked up at Emily, whose face remained carefully blank, then pressed the button to see the next photo. This one made his breath catch. A woman, presumably Emily's mother, lay crumpled against a wall, her face partially visible, showing a darkening bruise around her eye. Empty prescription bottles were scattered nearby. The next several photos documented more of the destruction. A fist-sized hole in a bedroom door, a kitchen with dishes smashed on the floor, and more disturbing, Close-up images of bruises on what appeared to be the mother's arms and neck, dated over various times. Then came a photo that made Michael's training kick in immediately. A man, red-faced with rage, captured mid-action as he threw something across a room. The image was slightly blurry, as if taken hastily or with shaking hands, but the menace was undeniable. Michael carefully lowered the camera, meeting Emily's gaze. Her eyes were dry, her expression composed, but he could see the slight tremor in her hands. "When did this happen, Emily?" he asked quietly. "Last night." Her voice was barely above a whisper. He got really mad, worse than before. "Mom told me to go to my room, but I heard things breaking, and I took pictures like she taught me to, for evidence. But then he saw me." Her composure wavered. "He said he was going to break my camera, and Mom yelled at me to run, so I did. I took my emergency backpack and left through my window." Michael's mind raced. The girl had been on her own since last night, wandering who knows where before ending up at the mall. And her mother, the image of the woman on the floor with those pill bottles nearby, sent a cold spike of fear through him. "Emily," he said carefully, "do you know if your mom is okay? Have you talked to her since you left?" Emily shook her head, the first tears finally appearing in her eyes. "I tried calling her cell phone, but she didn't answer. James checks her phone sometimes." She pulled her backpack closer. "I was going to go back home today, but when I walked by our apartment, his car was still there, and I got scared." Michael made a decision, one that technically violated mall protocol but followed a deeper instinct. The same instinct that had made him a good cop before the Keller incident. "Emily, I want to help you and your mom. Do you trust me enough to come with me to my office? We can figure out what to do next from there." She hesitated, then nodded, quickly wiping away a tear with her sleeve. "My name's Michael, by the way. Michael Donovan." He stood up slowly, careful not to make any sudden movements. "I know," Emily said quietly. "It's on your name tag." Despite everything, Michael felt a small smile form. "Observant kid. Can I carry your backpack for you? It looks heavy." Emily shook her head quickly, pulling the straps tighter over her shoulders. "No, thank you. I've got it." "All right then. My office is this way." As they walked through the empty mall, Michael kept a respectful distance, letting Emily set the pace. The storm outside had intensified, sleet now mixed with heavy snow that tapped insistently against the skylights overhead. Through the glass doors at the main entrance, he could see the parking lot rapidly disappearing beneath a white blanket, illuminated by the stark glow of security lights. "Is that your real job?" Emily asked suddenly, breaking the silence. "Being a mall guard?" Michael glanced down at her. "What do you mean? You seem like maybe you used to do something else." Her eyes were keen, assessing him with that unsettling adult gaze. "Like a policeman or something." Michael felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. "What makes you say that?" Emily shrugged. "The way you walk, the way you looked at my pictures. My mom says I notice things other people don't." "Your mom sounds smart," Michael said carefully. "And you're right. I used to be a police officer." "Why'd you stop?" The directness of children, no social filters, just straight to the heart of things. "That's a complicated story, Emily." "Because something bad happened?" Her voice was quiet, knowing. Michael slowed his pace, looking down at this perceptive child who seemed to carry the weight of understanding far beyond her years. "Yes," he admitted. "Something bad happened." Emily nodded, as if confirming something to herself. Bad things happen sometimes, even when people try to be careful. The simple truth of her statement struck Michael deeply, resonating with what his therapist had been trying to tell him for years, from the mouth of a child who was herself in the midst of something terrible. They reached the security office, a small room near the mall's administrative section. Michael unlocked the door and held it open, gesturing for Emily to enter first. The space was utilitarian. A desk with 2 monitors showing security camera feeds, a small table with a coffee maker and mini fridge, a couple of chairs and file cabinets along one wall. The only personal touch was a framed photograph of Michael's son, Aiden, taken 3 years ago at his 10th birthday party, the last one Michael had attended before the divorce. Emily took in the room with a quick, sweeping glance, then perched on the edge of a chair, her backpack still firmly attached to her shoulders. "Hungry?" Michael asked, opening the mini-fridge. "I've got a turkey sandwich, some carrot sticks, and apple." Emily's attempt to look disinterested was betrayed by the way she swallowed hard at the mention of food. "Maybe just the apple," she said. Michael pulled out the entire brown bag containing his midnight lunch. "How about I just put everything on the table, and you can have whatever you want?" He set out the sandwich, apple, carrots, a small bag of chips, and a bottle of water, then stepped back, giving her space. Emily hesitated only briefly before reaching for the sandwich, breaking it in half and taking a small, controlled bite, as if afraid to seem too eager. After she swallowed, she looked up at Michael. "Thank you. You're welcome." He sat down in the chair opposite her, leaving the desk between them so she wouldn't feel crowded. "Emily, I need to ask you some important questions about what's happening at your home. Is that okay?" She nodded, taking another careful bite of sandwich. "Has your stepdad hurt you or your mom before last night?" Emily's eyes dropped to the food in her hands. "Mom said we shouldn't talk about family problems with strangers." Michael nodded. "That's usually good advice. But sometimes, when there's danger, it's important to find a trustworthy adult who can help." "Do you think I'm trustworthy, Emily?" She studied him again with those two old eyes. "I think so. You didn't call the police right away like they did at school when I tried to tell my teacher about James." A red flag went up in Michael's mind. "You told your teacher about problems at home?" Emily nodded, her expression darkening. "Last month. She called social services, but James is friends with someone there. The lady who came to our house just talked to him, not to me or Mom alone. After she left, James was really mad." She pulled her sleeve up slightly, revealing a fading yellowish bruise around her wrist. "He said if I ever told anyone again, he'd hurt Ollie." "Ollie? My cat." Her voice softened. "He's still at home. I wanted to bring him, but I couldn't find him before I had to leave." Michael felt a familiar anger stirring in his chest, the same righteous fury that had once made him an effective advocate for victims during his time on the force. He tamped it down, knowing that staying calm was crucial now. "Emily, I want to help make sure both you and your mom are safe. And Ollie too," he added, seeing the concern in her eyes. "But to do that, I need to understand exactly what's happening. Can you tell me your full name and your address?" Emily finished the half sandwich before answering, clearly weighing her options. Finally, she said, "Emily Patterson. We live at Parkview Apartments, number 307. Michael recognized the complex, a mid-range apartment building about a mile from the mall. Not upscale, but not in a high-crime area either. Typical middle-class housing. "And your mom's name?" "Catherine. But everyone calls her Kathy." "And James? What's his last name?" "Mercer. James Mercer." She said the name flatly, without emotion. Michael pulled out his phone, then paused. "Emily, I need to make some calls to check on your mom and figure out how to keep you both safe. Is that okay?" Fear flashed across her face. "You're going to call the police?" "Eventually, yes," he said honestly. "But I have a friend on the force who I trust completely. Before I call her, though, I want to check something." He pulled up a web browser on his phone and quickly searched for James Mercer in Portland. Several results appeared, including social media profiles. Michael clicked on one, showing Emily the screen. "Is this your stepdad?" The profile picture showed a man in his late 30s with close-cropped brown hair and a beard, smiling broadly with his arm around a blonde woman who bore a striking resemblance to Emily. Emily nodded, her jaw tightening. "That's him. And Mom." Michael scrolled through the public posts, noting the carefully curated image James presented online, family outings, motivational quotes, jokes about married life. Nothing that hinted at the violence depicted in Emily's photographs. The most recent post, from just 3 hours ago, caught his attention. "Worried sick. Kathy and Emily missing since last night. If anyone has seen them, please contact me immediately." He showed it to Emily, whose eyes widened. "He's lying," she said immediately. "Mom didn't leave with me." She was still there when I ran away. When exactly did you leave home, Emily? Around midnight, after James went out to buy more beer. Mom told me to go to Aunt Louise's house, but Aunt Louise lives in Boston, and I didn't have enough money for a bus ticket. Her voice trembled slightly. I was going to try to call her today, but my phone died, and I forgot my charger. Michael checked his watch. Nearly midnight again. A full 24 hours since Emily had fled her home. If her mother had been in the condition shown in those photographs and hadn't been able to leave or call for help, Emily, I'm going to step just outside the door to make a phone call. I'll be right where you can see me through the window, okay? Help yourself to more food. She nodded, pulling the bag of chips closer while keeping a wary eye on him. Michael stepped into the hallway, leaving the door cracked so Emily could hear him if she tried. He dialed a number from memory, hoping his old partner would still be awake. Morales, answered a clipped, professional voice on the third ring. Lisa, it's Michael Donovan. A pause. Mike? It's been what? A year since I've heard from you? Everything okay? Not exactly. I need a favor, off the record for now. He could practically hear her sitting up straighter. I'm listening. Can you check if there have been any calls to 307 Parkview Apartments in the last 24 hours? The residents are Catherine Patterson and James Mercer. Hold on. He heard keyboard clicks in the background. Nothing logged. Why? Michael lowered his voice, stepping slightly further from the door. I've got Catherine's 9-year-old daughter here at Westfield Mall. She ran away last night after witnessing Mercer assaulting her mother. She's got photographic evidence. Lisa, it looks bad. Jesus, Lisa breathed. Where's the mother now? Unknown. The girl hasn't been able to contact her. Mercer posted on social media claiming both mother and daughter are missing, but according to the girl, the mother was still at the apartment when she fled. And you found the kid where? At the mall. Hiding in a bathroom. She's been on her own for 24 hours. Afraid to go home or go to the police because Mercer apparently has connections in social services. Previous reports were swept under the rug. Lisa swore softly. That tracks with some rumors I've heard about the department. What do you need from me? Can you do a welfare check on Catherine Patterson without tipping off Mercer that we've got the daughter? I'm worried about what we might find. I'll go myself right now. Text me the girl's cell number so I can verify her identity when I get there. Michael glanced back through the window at Emily, who was now eating the carrot sticks while watching him intently. Her phone's dead, but I'll text you a description and some details only she would know. He paused. Lisa, be careful. The photos I've seen. This guy is volatile. Always am. I'll call you as soon as I know something. She hesitated. It's good to hear your voice, Mike, even under these circumstances. Yours too. Thank you. Michael ended the call and returned to the office, where Emily had now polished off most of his midnight lunch. The food seemed to have restored some of her color and energy. Was that the police? She asked immediately. Michael nodded, sitting back down. My friend Lisa. She's going to check on your mom without letting James know we've talked to you. Emily's eyes widened. How? She'll say it's a routine welfare check, probably mention that a neighbor heard something. Police do them all the time. He offered what he hoped was a reassuring smile. She's very good at her job, Emily. One of the best. What if James is still there? What if he hurts my mom more because the police came? The worry in her voice was palpable. Detective Morales knows how to handle situations like this. Your mom's safety is her top priority. He leaned forward slightly. Emily, can you tell me more about what happened yesterday? What made James so angry? Emily's hands twisted in her lap. Mom lost her job last week. The restaurant where she was a manager closed down. When she told James, he got really mad because he lost his job too, a few months ago. He said she did it on purpose to make him look bad. She took a shaky breath. He'd been drinking a lot, more than usual. When I got home from school, they were already fighting. He was throwing things, calling her names. Michael nodded encouragingly, letting her tell the story at her own pace. Mom told me to do my homework in my room with the door closed, but I could hear everything. It got quiet for a while, and I thought maybe he'd left or calmed down, but then I heard Mom scream. Emily's voice caught. I opened my door a little and saw him dragging her by her hair. That's when I got my camera. Mom had told me before that if things got really bad, I should take pictures for evidence. Her eyes met Michael's, seeking understanding. So I did. That was very brave of you, Emily. She shook her head. No, it was stupid. He saw me taking pictures and came after me. Mom jumped on his back to stop him, and he threw her against the wall really hard. She hit her head and didn't get up right away. That's when I ran back to my room, grabbed my emergency backpack, and climbed out my window. Michael fought to keep his expression neutral despite the fury building inside him. Your emergency backpack? Mom helped me pack it a few months ago, after the first time James hit her really bad. It has clothes, some snack bars, a little bit of money, and important stuff like my birth certificate. Mom said it was just in case things got dangerous and we had to leave quickly. She looked down. We were supposed to leave together. The implication hung heavily in the air. Catherine had been preparing for the possibility of escape, but something had gone wrong with the plan. Emily, you mentioned James has friends in social services. Do you know who specifically? She shook her head. Just that when the lady came to check on us, she and James talked like they already knew each other. She called him Jimmy, and they laughed a lot. She didn't even ask to see my room or talk to me alone. Michael made a mental note to have Lisa look into that as well. Corruption or negligence in child welfare cases wasn't unheard of, unfortunately. His phone buzzed with a text message. Lisa, at the apartment now. No answer at the door. Building manager giving me access for welfare check. We'll update soon. Michael put the phone away, not wanting to worry Emily further. My friend is at your apartment now, checking on your mom. Emily's face paled. Is she okay? Did they find her? We don't know yet, Michael said gently, but we'll find out soon. The office suddenly felt too small, too confined. Emily's anxiety was becoming more visible as she fidgeted in her chair, eyes darting to the door and back to Michael. How about we walk around a bit? He suggested. The mall's still empty, and it might feel good to move around rather than just sitting and waiting. Emily nodded gratefully, sliding off the chair and adjusting her backpack. They walked in silence through the darkened mall, their footsteps echoing off the high ceilings. The storm outside had intensified, snow now falling heavily and accumulating on the skylight above. The entire scene had a surreal quality. A vast, empty consumer paradise, normally bustling with life, now silent except for the distant hum of the heating system and the occasional crackle of Michael's radio as Randy checked in from the other side of the building. I like the mall at night, Emily said suddenly. It's peaceful. Michael nodded. It is. Very different from during the day. I used to come here with Mom on Saturdays, before James moved in with us. Her voice took on a wistful quality. We'd get pretzels and look at all the displays. We couldn't buy much, but Mom said that was okay because sometimes just looking at pretty things makes you feel rich. The simple observation held a poignancy that caught Michael off guard. Your mom sounds like a wise woman. She is. Emily's use of present tense didn't escape Michael's notice. She reads a lot. She was taking online classes to become a teacher before. She trailed off. Before James. Emily nodded. He said it was a waste of money. They passed the darkened carousel in the central atrium, its painted horses frozen in mid-gallop under dust covers. Emily stopped to look at them, her expression unreadable. My dad used to take me on that, she said quietly. Before he died. Michael waited, letting her share at her own pace. He had cancer. I was 5 when he died. I don't remember him very well anymore. Just little things, like how he always smelled like peppermint gum, and how he would read me stories using different voices for all the characters. She reached out to touch one of the covered horses, then pulled her hand back. Mom met James a year later. He was nice at first. It was the familiar pattern, the slow erosion of safety, the escalation that survivors often described. Michael had heard it countless times during his years on the force. When did he start hurting your mom? Emily considered the question with a seriousness that no 9-year-old should possess. I think it was always there, but it got worse when he lost his job. That's when he started drinking more. But Mom said it wasn't really about the job or the drinking. Those were just excuses. She said some people just have violence inside them, like a monster they keep hidden until they think it's safe to let it out. Michael's phone buzzed again, and he quickly checked the message. Lisa, apartment clear. Signs of struggle. Blood on bathroom floor. No sign of Catherine or James. EPB issued for both. Coming to you now. ETA 20 minutes if roads hold. Michael's blood ran cold. He looked at Emily, who was watching him with those perceptive eyes. What is it? Did they find Mom? Michael considered lying, softening the truth, but something told him Emily deserved honesty. They didn't find your mom or James at the apartment. My friend Lisa is coming here to talk to us. Emily's face crumpled momentarily before she regained control. He took her somewhere. To hurt her more. We don't know that, Michael said, though the evidence pointed to something ominous. The police are looking for both of them now. We have to find her, Emily said, her voice suddenly fierce. She couldn't finish the sentence. We will, Michael promised, hoping it wasn't a lie. Detective Morales is the best, and now every officer in the city will be looking too. Emily abruptly sat down on a bench near the carousel, her small frame seeming to collapse in on itself. It's all my fault. If I hadn't taken those pictures— No, Michael said firmly, sitting beside her but keeping a respectful distance. None of this is your fault, Emily. The only person responsible for what's happening is James. Not you, not your mom. Just him. She didn't look convinced. But if you had stayed, you might be hurt too, and we wouldn't know what was happening. You wouldn't be here, helping us find your mom. Emily looked up at him, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. What if we can't find her in time? Michael felt the weight of her question, the same question that had haunted him after the Keller incident. What if I'm not fast enough, smart enough, good enough to prevent tragedy? Emily, I can't promise what will happen, he said honestly, but I can promise that I won't stop trying to help you and your mom, and neither will Detective Morales or the other officers looking for her. Emily wiped her eyes with her sleeve. Mom always says that honesty is better than false promises. She's right about that too. They sat in silence for a few moments, the weight of the situation settling between them. Then Emily spoke, her voice small but determined. I want to show you more pictures. Ones that might help find Mom. She unzipped her backpack and pulled out the digital camera again, turning it on with practiced ease. I didn't just take pictures last night. I've been taking them for a while whenever James did scary things. Mom said we needed evidence. She navigated through the camera's menu to older photos, then handed it to Michael. These are from last month. The images showed James arguing with someone outside a bar, his face contorted with rage. Another showed a dented fender on a car with a license plate clearly visible. That's James's friend Rick. He comes over sometimes. They get in trouble together. Mom says he's a bad influence, but I think James is the bad one. She scrolled to another photo. This is where they go sometimes. Mom followed them once when she thought James was cheating on her. The photo showed a rundown cabin in a wooded area. Where is this place, Emily? I don't know exactly. Mom said it was up near Sebago Lake, at Rick's family property. She only went there once. Michael studied the image carefully. If James had taken Catherine somewhere, this cabin could be a possibility. He made a mental note to show the photo to Lisa when she arrived. Emily continued scrolling through the camera, showing various incidents over the past few months. Arguments, damage to the apartment, James with questionable associates. She documented it all with the methodical precision of someone building a case, which, Michael realized, was exactly what Catherine had been teaching her daughter to do. Mom said if anything ever happened to her, I should take the camera to the police and make them look at every picture. Emily's voice hardened with determination. She said the pictures don't lie, even when people do. Michael handed the camera back to her. Your mom was preparing you, wasn't she? Teaching you how to gather evidence, what to do in an emergency. Emily nodded. She said knowledge is power, and that no matter what happened, I should remember that I'm stronger than I think. She clutched the camera tightly. I don't feel very strong right now. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. Emily, Michael said honestly. Many adults wouldn't have handled this situation as well as you have. His radio crackled. Mike, you there? Randy's voice sounded concerned. There's a police detective at the main entrance asking for you. Says her name is Morales. Michael grabbed his radio. I'm on my way. Let her in and escort her to the central atrium. Copy that. He turned to Emily. That's Detective Morales. She's going to help us figure out what to do next. Ready to meet her? Emily stood up, squaring her small shoulders. Ready. As they headed toward the main entrance, Michael found himself marveling at the resilience of the child beside him. Despite everything she'd been through, she still maintained a core of strength that reminded him of his own son, Aiden. Though Emily had endured trials no child should face. The main entrance doors slid open, bringing in a gust of icy air and snowflakes along with Detective Lisa Morales. She was a compact woman in her early 40s, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She wore a heavy police-issue winter jacket over plain clothes, with her badge clipped to her belt. Michael recognized her purposeful stride immediately. Lisa approached everything with the same direct intensity, whether it was a homicide investigation or ordering lunch. Lisa's eyes went straight to Emily, her expression softening slightly before she looked up at Michael. The brief glance they exchanged communicated volumes. Something was very wrong, but she wouldn't say it in front of the child. You must be Emily, Lisa said, crouching down to the girl's level and offering her hand. I'm Detective Morales, but you can call me Lisa. Emily regarded her with that now familiar assessing gaze before tentatively shaking her hand. Did you find my mom? Lisa's expression remained professionally neutral. Not yet, but we have officers looking for her and your stepfather right now. She glanced up at Michael. Is there somewhere more comfortable we can talk? My security office. Michael nodded. This way. As they walked, Lisa fell into step beside Michael, letting Emily walk slightly ahead of them. Blood in the bathroom, she murmured, her voice too low for Emily to hear. A lot of it. Looks like someone tried to clean it up in a hurry. Neighbors heard arguing around 10 p.m. last night, then a loud thud, then nothing. No one checked. One neighbor saw James leaving with a large duffel bag around 9 a.m. this morning, looking agitated. He returned about an hour later, then left again with a suitcase around 8 p.m. Michael's stomach nodded. The timeline didn't sound good for Catherine Patterson. The photos? Lisa asked. Damning, Michael replied quietly. Clear evidence of ongoing abuse. The girl's been documenting it for months at her mother's instruction. Lisa nodded grimly. Smart woman. Back in the security office, Emily had reclaimed her chair, clutching her backpack on her lap like a shield. Lisa sat across from her while Michael stood by the door, giving them space. Emily, I need to ask you some questions about your mom and James. Is that okay? Lisa's tone was gentle but direct. Emily nodded, her fingers twisting the straps of her backpack. When you left your apartment last night, what was your mom wearing? Do you remember? Emily furrowed her brow in concentration. Her blue sweater, the one with the hole in the left sleeve that she always says she's going to fix, and jeans. Her work shoes were by the door, so she was probably in her socks. That's very helpful, Lisa said. And can you think of any places James might take your mom? Any friends' houses, or places they go together? Emily glanced at Michael, who nodded encouragingly. She showed me pictures of a cabin near Sebago Lake, he explained. Belongs to someone named Rick, apparently a friend of James. Richardson, Emily supplied. Rick Richardson. He has a beard like James and a tattoo of a snake on his arm. Mom doesn't like him. Lisa made a note in her small notepad. Good, that's very helpful. We'll check that location. She looked directly at Emily. Is there anything else you can think of that might help us find your mom? Anything at all. Emily hesitated, then reached for her camera again. There's this place too. I heard James talking about it on the phone once, saying it was a good place to lay low if he ever needed to. She pulled up an image showing a weathered motel with a neon sign reading Pinewood Lodge. Mom and I went there once after a really bad night. We stayed for 2 days before going back home. Emily's voice became smaller. James found us anyway. Lisa studied the photo. I know this place. It's just off Route 1, heading north. She tapped a few notes into her phone. I'm sending officers to check both locations right now. The radio on Michael's belt crackled to life. Mike, it's Randy. There's someone at the west entrance trying to get in. Says he's looking for his daughter. Michael and Lisa exchanged alarmed looks. Description. Michael asked into the radio. White male, late 30s, brown hair, beard. Driving a blue Honda Civic. Says his name is James Mercer and his daughter Emily went missing yesterday. Claims he's been searching everywhere for her. Emily's face drained of color. That's him, she whispered, shrinking back in her chair. That's James's car. Lisa was on her feet instantly, hand moving to her weapon. Tell him to wait outside, she instructed Michael. Say security protocol doesn't allow after-hours entrance, but that you'll check if anyone matching his daughter's description is in the mall. Michael relayed the message to Randy, emphasizing that under no circumstances should he let the man enter the building. Copy that, Randy replied. But the guy seems pretty agitated. Says it's an emergency. Keep him outside, Michael repeated firmly. I'm on my way. Lisa turned to Emily, her expression resolute. Emily, I need you to stay here with the door locked while we deal with James. You'll be safe. Michael and I won't let him near you. Emily's eyes widened with fear. What if he hurts you too? He's really strong when he's angry. I'm a police officer, Lisa reminded her gently. I deal with people like James all the time, and Michael used to be a police officer too. We know how to handle this. Emily looked unconvinced but nodded, clutching her camera tightly. Lock the door behind us, Michael instructed. Don't open it for anyone except me or Detective Morales. Understand? Yes, Emily whispered. As they stepped into the hallway, Lisa pulled Michael aside. Let me take lead on this. I'll approach as law enforcement conducting a missing persons investigation. You hang back as mall security. Michael nodded, pushing down the surge of adrenaline that pumped through his system. What about Emily? Evidence indicates Catherine Patterson may be severely injured or worse, Lisa said bluntly. We need to take James into custody and get him to tell us where she is. Emily stays secured until we've neutralized the threat. They moved quickly through the empty mall towards the west entrance, where the silhouette of a man could be seen pacing outside the glass doors, occasionally peering in and cupping his hands around his eyes to see better. There he is, Michael confirmed, recognizing James Mercer from the photos. Even from a distance, Michael could see that James was agitated. His movements jerky, his body language aggressive as he argued with Randy through the glass doors. The snow swirled around him, sticking to his hair and beard. He wasn't wearing a heavy coat, just a leather jacket inadequate for the weather, suggesting he'd left in a hurry. Lisa adjusted her jacket to ensure her badge and weapon were visible. Remember, we're just gathering information at this point. Let me steer the conversation. Understood, Michael agreed, falling into his old role as backup without conscious thought. As they approached, James spotted them and immediately redirected his attention, pressing closer to the glass. Randy looked relieved to see them. Sir, please step back from the doors, Lisa called out firmly as they drew near. She held up her badge. Detective Morales, Portland Police. I understand you're looking for your daughter. James's demeanor shifted instantly, the agitation transforming into concerned parent so smoothly that Michael would have been fooled if he hadn't seen Emily's photographs. The transformation reminded him of the many domestic abusers he'd encountered during his years on the force, chameleons who could switch personas in an instant. Yes, officer. Thank God you're here, James called through the glass, his voice muffled but audible. My daughter Emily and my wife Kathy went missing yesterday. I've been looking everywhere for them. Someone thought they saw a girl matching Emily's description near this mall earlier today. Lisa signaled Randy to open the outer door only, creating a vestibule space where they could speak without letting James fully into the mall. Mr. Mercer, we're aware of the situation, Lisa said, her tone professional. In fact, I've been assigned to investigate the disappearance of both your wife and daughter. James's eyes narrowed slightly. You found them? Are they okay? We're following several leads, Lisa replied noncommittally. Can you tell me when you last saw your wife and stepdaughter? And under what circumstances? James ran a hand through his snow-dusted hair, looking appropriately distressed. Yesterday morning before I left for a job interview. Everything was fine. Kathy was helping Emily with homework. When I got home around noon, they were both gone. No note, nothing. Kathy's phone goes straight to voicemail. I've been worried sick. Michael watched James carefully, noting the slight tremor in his left hand. Not from cold or concern, but the subtle shake of alcohol withdrawal. His eyes were bloodshot, and now that he was closer, Michael detected the faint smell of whiskey beneath the winter air. Mr. Mercer, where were you between 10 p.m. last night and 9 a.m. this morning? Lisa asked, the question casual but pointed. A flash of something, anger, perhaps, or wariness, crossed James's face before disappearing. At home, looking for my family, calling friends and relatives. Why? What does that have to do with finding them? Just establishing a timeline, Lisa said smoothly. Neighbors reported hearing an argument at your apartment around 10 p.m. last night. Can you explain that? James's expression hardened momentarily. I had the TV up loud. An action movie. Might have sounded like arguing to the neighbors. And can you explain why several witnesses saw you leaving your apartment with a large duffel bag this morning? And later with a suitcase? Lisa continued, her tone still conversational but her eyes sharp. James shifted his weight, a subtle tell that Michael recognized from interrogations. I was gathering things I thought Kathy and Emily might need when I found them. Clothes, toiletries. I've been checking motels, friends' houses. I thought maybe they went somewhere without telling me. Mind if I take a look in your car? Lisa asked casually. Just to rule things out. James took a small step backward. Don't you need a warrant for that? Not if you give consent, Lisa replied. Most concerned parents would be eager to cooperate fully when their child is missing. James's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Look, I just want to find my family. If you know something about where they are, please tell me. We're doing everything we can to locate them, Mr. Mercer, Lisa assured him, sidestepping his request. It would help if you came down to the station to file a formal missing persons report. We can get more details there. Speed up the search. James glanced past Lisa at Michael, his eyes narrowing slightly. And who are you? You don't look like a cop. Mall security, Michael replied neutrally. Just assisting the detective. James studied him for a moment, and Michael had the unsettling feeling that James was committing his face to memory. Then James turned back to Lisa. I'll come to the station tomorrow. Right now, I want to check the mall. If Emily's been seen here, I need to look for myself. The mall's closed and has been thoroughly searched by security, Lisa stated firmly. If your daughter was here, she's not anymore. The lie was smooth, professional. But I really must insist you come to the station now, Mr. Mercer. We have resources there that could help locate your family more quickly. James's expression darkened, the mask of concerned parent slipping. Am I under some kind of suspicion, detective? Because it sounds like you're treating me like a suspect instead of a victim here. Standard procedure in missing persons cases, especially involving minors, Lisa replied coolly. We explore all possibilities. James stared at her for a long moment, calculation visible in his eyes. Then, abruptly, he stepped back. I need to keep looking. I'll come by the station first thing tomorrow. Before Lisa could respond, he turned and strode back toward his car, shoulders rigid with tension. He's running, Michael muttered. Lisa was already on her phone, stepping out into the snow to keep eyes on James's vehicle. This is Detective Morales. I need an unmarked unit to follow a blue Honda Civic leaving Westfield Mall, heading east. Driver is James Mercer, person of interest in a domestic violence and possible homicide investigation. Do not approach, just track movement. She rattled off the license plate number. Michael watched as James's car pulled away, skidding slightly on the snow-covered parking lot before disappearing into the swirling whiteness. Lisa returned, brushing snow from her shoulders. He's spooked. Knows we're onto him. You think he'll lead us to Catherine? Michael asked. Lisa's expression was grim. That's the hope. But honesty, Mike. The scene at the apartment, the blood evidence. I'm not optimistic about finding her alive. Michael felt a chill that had nothing to do with the winter storm. What do we tell Emily? Lisa sighed, a rare glimpse of the emotional weight she carried. For now, just that we're looking for her mom and that she's safe from James. Child Protective Services is sending someone to take her to emergency foster care until we locate a relative. Michael thought of Emily locked in his security office, clutching her backpack and camera, waiting to hear about her mother with those two old eyes that had seen far too much already. The thought of her being handed off to strangers, even well-meaning ones, after everything she'd been through seemed like another trauma on top of too many. What about her aunt in Boston? He suggested. Emily mentioned her mother told her to go there if things got bad. We'll try to contact her, Lisa agreed. But until we can verify the relationship and get her here, Emily needs a safe place to stay. They headed back toward the security office, the empty mall stretching before them like a vast, neutral territory between danger and safety. Michael found himself thinking of the Keller case, another child caught in the crossfire of adult violence, another situation where the system had failed to protect the vulnerable until it was too late. I could stay with her, he said suddenly, surprising himself, just until her aunt can get here. She trusts me, and I've already been vetted by the mall for working with minors. Lisa gave him a searching look. This isn't your responsibility, Mike. You're not a cop anymore. No, he acknowledged. But I made her a promise. And this time, I can keep it. Lisa's expression softened with understanding. She knew about the Keller case, had been there for the aftermath, had watched a good cop destroy himself with guilt over what he couldn't prevent. I'll see what I can arrange, she said finally. But no promises. They reached the security office door. Michael knocked gently. Emily? It's Michael and Detective Morales. You can unlock the door now. There was a pause, then the sound of the lock turning. The door opened to reveal Emily standing there, her backpack on and her camera clutched tightly in her hand. Did you find my mom? She asked immediately, her eyes moving frantically between them. Did James tell you where she is? Lisa crouched down to Emily's level. Not yet, sweetheart. James left, but we have police officers following him. He might lead us to your mom. Emily's face fell, but she nodded with that unnatural composure. What happens to me now? We're going to find a safe place for you to stay while we look for your mom, Lisa explained gently. We'll try to contact your Aunt Louise in Boston, but until then, I don't want to go with strangers. Emily interrupted, her voice small but firm. She looked up at Michael. Can't I stay with you? Just until they find Mom. The direct request caught Michael off guard, even though he'd just suggested the same thing to Lisa. He met Emily's gaze, seeing the desperate hope there, and found himself nodding. If it's allowed, yes, he said, looking to Lisa for confirmation. I'd be happy to have you stay with me until we find your mom or your aunt can come get you. Lisa sighed. I'll have to clear it with my supervisor and Child Protective Services. It's not standard procedure. Please, Emily said, turning to Lisa with an intensity that belied her 9 years. I trust him, and I have my emergency backpack with everything I need. Lisa regarded them both for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I'll make some calls. No promises, but I'll try. Michael felt a weight settle on his shoulders. Responsibility, purpose, something he hadn't felt since turning in his badge. Emily's trust was a fragile, precious thing, and he was determined not to betray it. Outside, the storm howled against the windows, snow piling higher by the minute. But inside the small security office, a tentative connection had formed. A child who had learned too early not to trust, and a man who had stopped trusting himself, finding in each other something like hope in the midst of uncertainty. Michael's phone buzzed with a text from Randy. Storms picking up. County just declared level 2 snow emergency. Roads closing soon. You need a ride home? He looked at Emily, still clutching her camera like a lifeline, and typed back. Yes, and I might have a guest staying over. I'll explain later. Whatever happened next, Michael knew with absolute certainty that he wouldn't let Emily face it alone. Whether her mother was found alive or not, whether James was caught quickly or remained at large, the girl with the 2 old eyes and the emergency backpack had awakened something in him that he thought had died in the Keller case. The fundamental drive to protect that had made him become a police officer in the first place. For the first time in 3 years, Michael Donovan felt like himself again. Even as the storm outside grew stronger and the night stretched dark before them, Michael's apartment wasn't prepared for visitors. This thought struck him as he turned the key in the lock. Emily's small form waiting patiently behind him in the dimly lit hallway. The 12-unit building was quiet at 2 a.m., the storm having driven everyone indoors hours ago. It's not much, he said apologetically as he pushed the door open. And it's a bit of a mess. That's okay, Emily replied softly. Our apartment was always messy too. Mom said it meant people actually lived there. The simple observation made Michael's chest tighten. He flicked on the lights, revealing a space that was less messy than simply sparse. A bachelor's apartment with minimal decoration or personality. The living room contained a worn leather couch facing a modest television, a coffee table covered with old mail and a half-empty whiskey bottle, and a small dining table with 2 chairs that looked rarely used. Michael hurried to clear away some files and transform the futon in his home office into a bed, while Emily waited in the living room, her backpack still firmly attached to her shoulders. Lisa had worked minor miracles to make this arrangement happen. After multiple phone calls, she convinced Child Protective Services to grant temporary emergency placement for Emily with Michael, pending contact with her aunt in Boston. All set, Michael announced, returning to find Emily examining the few photographs he had displayed on a bookshelf. Most were of Aiden at various ages. The most recent showed a lanky 13-year-old with Michael's dark hair and serious eyes, awkwardly posed beside his father during a weekend visit. Is this your son? Emily asked, pointing to the photo. Michael nodded. Aiden. He's 13 now. Lives with his mom in New Hampshire. Do you see him a lot? The innocent question carried weight. Not as much as I'd like to. Every few months. Emily seemed to consider this information carefully. My dad died when I was 5. Cancer. I'm sorry, Michael said. She shrugged slightly. I don't remember him very well anymore. Just little things. She continued studying the photos. Where are your Christmas decorations? The question caught Michael off guard. I don't really decorate much. Emily frowned. But Christmas is in 2 weeks. Is it? Michael had lost track. The holidays had ceased to hold much meaning after the divorce, even more so after the Keller incident. I guess you're right. Emily yawned suddenly, her small body finally betraying the exhaustion she must have been fighting for hours. Michael helped her get settled in the makeshift bedroom. She finally removed her backpack, placing it carefully on the floor beside the futon. I put some extra blankets here in case you get cold, Michael said. And there's a glass of water on the desk. I'll be just down the hall if you need anything. Emily sat on the edge of the futon, suddenly looking very small in the unfamiliar room. What about my mom? What if Detective Morales finds her while we're sleeping? She promised to call immediately, no matter what time, Michael assured her. And my phone will be on full volume. Emily nodded, but her worry remained evident in the slight furrow of her brow. Can I keep my camera with me? Of course. She pulled it from the pocket of her jacket, holding it like a talisman. It has all my pictures of Mom. The simple statement held such profound meaning that Michael had to swallow past a sudden tightness in his throat. I understand. Try to get some sleep, okay? Things might look clearer in the morning. Good night, Michael, she said formally, as if practicing adult social customs. Good night, Emily. As he closed the door, leaving it cracked so she wouldn't feel trapped, Michael heard her whisper something. He paused, listening. Good night, Mom, wherever you are. Please be okay. The quiet prayer struck him like a physical blow. He moved quickly to his own bedroom, closing the door and sitting heavily on the edge of his bed, head in his hands. What had he gotten himself into? He was responsible for this traumatized child while her mother was missing, possibly dead, and her violent stepfather was still at large. His phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. James's car found abandoned at Park and Ride off I-95. Appears to have switched vehicles. APB updated. Officers checking cabin and motel tonight despite storm. Will update when I know more. Sleep came fitfully, interrupted by dreams where he was searching for someone. Sometimes Catherine Patterson, sometimes the Keller boy, through endless, snowy corridors that looked suspiciously like the Westfield Mall after hours. The smell of coffee woke him. Michael found Emily in the kitchen, methodically arranging items on the counter. Good morning, she said, looking up from her task. I hope it's okay that I made coffee. Mom always says caffeine keeps adults from being grumpy in the morning. Despite everything, Michael felt a smile tug at his lips. It's definitely okay. Thank you. Emily had apparently taken stock of his kitchen and organized what meager breakfast options existed. You don't have much food, she observed matter-of-factly. Or milk. Or eggs. I usually grab breakfast on the way to work, Michael admitted, feeling strangely embarrassed by the barren state of his refrigerator. Any word about my mom? Emily asked, the question casual but her eyes betraying her anxiety. Michael checked his phone. No new messages from Lisa. Not yet. But Detective Morales will contact us as soon as she knows something. They worked side by side in companionable silence, making a simple breakfast. Michael poured coffee for himself and juice for Emily, while she carefully spread the last of the peanut butter on toast. As they sat at the small dining table, Michael noticed that Emily kept glancing at his phone, which he'd placed between them. The roads are probably still pretty bad from the storm, he offered, trying to explain the lack of updates. That might be slowing things down. Emily nodded, but her expression remained troubled. What if James hurt her really bad? What if She couldn't finish the sentence. Emily, Michael said gently. Detective Morales is very good at her job. She won't stop looking until she finds your mom. But what if it's too late? Emily's voice was barely audible. What if she's like your son's friend? Michael froze, his coffee cup halfway to his lips. What do you mean? Emily looked down at her plate. When you were looking at my pictures last night, you got the same face my teacher did when Jamie Keller's dad came to school with a gun last year. Everyone said Officer Donovan tried to save Jamie but couldn't. The connection hit Michael like a physical blow. Of course, Portland wasn't that big a city. The Keller case had been major news, especially in the school system after the tragedy. You know about that? He asked carefully. Emily nodded. Everyone at school talked about it after it happened. How Officer Donovan tried to save Jamie, but the bad guy had a gun. She looked at him curiously. Was that why you stopped being a police officer? Because you were scared after that? The directness of the question pierced through Michael's usual defenses. Not exactly scared, he said carefully. More like, I lost faith in my ability to protect people, to make the right decisions when it mattered most. Emily considered this with remarkable seriousness. Mom says mistakes don't define who you are unless you let them. She says it's what you do after the mistake that matters. Again, Catherine Patterson's wisdom, filtered through her daughter, struck Michael with unexpected force. In 3 years of therapy, no one had put it quite so simply or effectively. Before Michael could respond, his phone buzzed with an incoming call from Lisa. He answered immediately, putting it on speaker. Mike, I'm on my way to you now. Lisa's voice came through, tense with urgency. Where's Emily? She's right here with me, Michael replied. You're on speaker. Hi, Detective Morales, Emily said, leaning forward. Did you find my mom? There was a brief pause, and Michael could almost see Lisa collecting herself. choosing her words carefully. "Not yet, sweetie," she said finally. "But we found something important at that cabin you showed us in the photos. I need to ask you some questions about it. I'll be there in about 20 minutes. Okay?" After they disconnected, Emily pushed her half-eaten toast away. "She didn't find Mom, but she found something," Michael pointed out. "That's progress." Emily didn't look convinced. She slid off her chair and moved to the window, staring out at the snow-covered street below. The storm had passed overnight, leaving behind a transformed landscape. "I should have stayed," she said suddenly, her breath fogging the glass. "I should have helped Mom instead of running away." Michael moved to stand beside her. "Emily, if you had stayed, you might be hurt too. Or worse, your mom told you to run because she wanted you to be safe." "But what about her?" Emily's voice cracked. "Who's keeping her safe?" The question hung in the air, unanswerable. Michael struggled to find the right words. "Your mom made a brave choice," he said finally. "She protected you. And now, because you're safe, Detective Morales and other officers can focus completely on finding her." Emily considered this, her finger tracing patterns in the condensation on the window. "I took pictures," she said, as if reminding herself. "Evidence. That's what Mom said was most important. And those pictures are helping the investigation right now," Michael assured her. "You did everything right, Emily." The buzzer for the apartment sounded, indicating someone at the building's entrance. Michael checked through the intercom system and buzzed Lisa up. When Lisa arrived, her expression told Michael immediately that whatever she had discovered wasn't good news. She was still wearing the same clothes from last night, her face showing the strain of what had clearly been a sleepless night. "Hey, Emily," she greeted, managing a tired smile. "Thanks for waiting for me. Do you mind if I talk to Michael alone for a minute first?" Emily looked between them suspiciously. "You're going to talk about my mom?" "Yes," Lisa admitted. "But then I'll tell you everything you need to know, I promise. Adult conversations first, then kid conversations. That's how it works." Emily seemed to accept this logic, retreating to the window seat while the adults stepped into the kitchen. "What did you find?" Michael asked in a low voice once they were out of earshot. Lisa's expression was grim. "Blood at the cabin. A lot of it. And signs of someone being dragged. Forensics is processing it now, but we're operating under the assumption that it's Catherine's." Michael felt his stomach drop. "Any sign of where they went next?" "Tire tracks leading away from the cabin, partially obscured by the snow. We're trying to identify the vehicle type. James abandoned his Honda at a commuter lot, so he's in something else now." Lisa ran a hand through her hair, frustration evident. "We've got roadblocks on all major routes, but with the storm cleanup, it's chaos out there." "What about the friend?" "Rick Richardson. In custody, picked him up at his apartment early this morning. Claims he hasn't seen James in days, but his story's full of holes. We're working on him." Lisa's eyes were somber. "Based on the blood evidence at both scenes, we've transitioned to a probable homicide investigation. But we're not giving up on finding Catherine alive." The confirmation of what he had feared sent a chill through Michael. "What do we tell Emily?" "The truth, but carefully," Lisa said. "Kids know when adults are lying to them. But we focus on the actions being taken, the progress being made." They returned to the living room, where Emily was now standing, clutching her camera with white-knuckled intensity. "Is my mom dead?" she asked directly, her voice small but steady. Lisa and Michael exchanged surprised glances at the bluntness of the question. Lisa crouched down to Emily's level. "We don't know for sure, Emily," she said honestly. "We found evidence that your mom was hurt at the cabin in the photos, and we're doing everything possible to find her. We have police officers all over the state looking for her and for James." Emily's face remained carefully blank, but her lower lip trembled slightly. "The blood. You found blood." Lisa nodded, not insulting the child's intelligence with denials. "Yes, but blood doesn't mean. It doesn't tell us everything. People can lose blood and still be okay if they get help." "Did you arrest Rick?" Emily asked, her mind clearly processing the information methodically. Mom said he helps James do bad things. We have him in custody, Lisa confirmed. He's helping us with our investigation. For the next half hour, Lisa asked Emily questions about James's habits, places he might go, and people who might help him. Emily answered with remarkable composure, showing Lisa additional photographs from her camera that might provide clues. When Lisa's phone rang, she stepped away to answer it. The conversation was brief but intense, her posture straightening noticeably. When she returned, her face was carefully neutral. James's second vehicle was found at a bus station in Augusta, she reported. Ticket agents remember him buying a ticket to Boston late last night. Emily stood up quickly. Is Mom with him? Lisa shook her head. He was alone, according to witnesses. But this is good news, Emily. It means we're tracking his movements. We're getting closer. What about Emily? Michael asked. Should she come with you to the station? Lisa shook her head. Child Protective Services is overwhelmed with the storm aftermath. They've approved her staying with you until we locate her aunt. She looked at Emily. Unless you'd rather come to the police station, there's a special room for kids there. Emily moved slightly closer to Michael. I want to stay here, if that's okay. Of course it's okay, Michael assured her. After Lisa left, an awkward silence fell over the apartment. Emily stood by the window again, her camera clutched to her chest, watching the detective's car pull away. She didn't tell us everything, she said finally. She knows something else about Mom. Michael was continually surprised by the child's perceptiveness. What makes you say that? The way her face changed when she got that phone call, and how she didn't look at me directly afterward. Emily turned to face him. Adults think kids don't notice, but we do. Michael considered how to respond. The truth was, he had sensed the same thing. Lisa had received information she wasn't sharing, at least not yet. Detective Morales has to verify information before sharing it, he said carefully. That's part of being a good police officer. But she promised to tell us as soon as she knows something for certain. Emily didn't look entirely convinced, but she nodded. What do we do now? After discussing their options, they decided to make a quick trip to the corner store for groceries. Outside, the neighborhood was beginning to recover from the storm. Snowplows had cleared the main roads, and neighbors were out shoveling. As they carefully picked their way along the partially cleared sidewalk, Michael noticed Emily watching the other children with a complicated expression. What are you thinking? He asked gently. She shrugged. Just that everything looks so normal out here, like nothing bad is happening. She looked up at him. Mom says that's how it always is. People having regular days while other people are having the worst day of their lives, all at the same time. The observation, so profound from someone so young, momentarily took Michael's breath away. Your mom is very wise. At the corner store, as they waited in line with their groceries, Emily suddenly froze, her eyes fixed on the store's small television mounted in the corner. Michael followed her gaze and felt his heart drop. A local news reporter stood in front of the cabin they had discussed earlier, the property now circled with police tape. The caption below read, Breaking. Blood evidence in missing woman case. The volume was low, but the images were clear enough. Police vehicles, crime scene technicians in white coveralls, and most distressingly, what appeared to be a body bag being loaded into a medical examiner's van. Emily's face had gone completely white. Mom, she whispered, the word barely audible. Michael quickly placed himself between Emily and the television, crouching down to her level. Emily, look at me. We don't know what that is. Could be evidence they're transporting or something else entirely. Detective Morales would have told us if they'd found your mom. He pulled out his phone, stepping out of the checkout line while keeping Emily close. Lisa answered on the second ring. We just saw the news report, he said without preamble. The body bag at the cabin. Is it Catherine? The Me is transporting remains found near the cabin, not inside it. Preliminary assessment suggests they're animal remains, possibly a deer, but we're checking thoroughly. Nothing has been confirmed yet. Relief washed over Michael. So they haven't found Catherine? No human remains have been located at this time, Lisa confirmed carefully. But Mike, there's something else. The blood evidence. The lab rushed the preliminary testing. It's human and there's a lot of it. More than... She didn't finish the sentence, but the implication was clear. After hanging up, he knelt in front of Emily again. It wasn't your mom, Emily. Detective Morales confirmed that they haven't found her. What you saw on TV was something else they're investigating. Some color returned to Emily's face, but the fear remained in her eyes. Are you sure? I'm sure, he said firmly. Detective Morales wouldn't lie about that. On the walk back to the apartment, Emily suddenly asked, If they don't find her, what happens to me? The question hit Michael like a physical blow. Your aunt will take care of you, he said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. And if she can't? Emily persisted, looking up at him with those two old eyes. Then we'll figure something out, Michael promised, unable to offer more specific reassurance. When they reached the apartment building, Emily stopped at the entrance, looking back at the snowy street. Mom loves the snow, she said quietly, using present tense. She says it makes the world look clean and new, like you're getting a fresh start. On impulse, Michael asked, Would you like to make a snow angel? There's a perfect spot right there. He pointed to an undisturbed patch of snow in the small courtyard beside the apartment building. Emily hesitated, then nodded. They set their grocery bags down at the building entrance and moved to the pristine snowfield. Emily lay down carefully, arranging herself with deliberate precision, then began moving her arms and legs to create the angel shape. When she stood up, Emily examined her creation critically. It's not as good as the ones I make with Mom. The wings are uneven. I think it's perfect, Michael said. Snow angels don't have to be symmetrical. That's what makes them unique. Emily considered this, then looked at him expectantly. Aren't you going to make one too? The question caught him off guard. How long had it been since he'd done something so carefree, so childlike? I'm probably not very good at it, he warned, feeling strangely self-conscious. That's okay, Emily said with surprising gentleness. Mom says practice makes progress, not perfect. Michael set down the grocery bags and lowered himself carefully onto the snow beside Emily's angel. The cold immediately seeped through his coat, but he dutifully moved his arms and legs, feeling slightly ridiculous but also, unexpectedly, lighter somehow. When he stood up, Emily studied his creation with the serious assessment of an art critic. Your wings are really big, she observed. Like a guardian angel. Is that good? She nodded. Guardian angels need big wings to protect people. Back in the apartment, as Michael prepared lunch, his phone buzzed with another call from Lisa. Her voice was different now, tense with what sounded like cautious excitement. Mike, we've got something. A clinic in New Hampshire reported treating a woman matching Catherine's description early this morning. She had significant injuries but was conscious and stable. She left against medical advice after being treated. Emily, who was sitting close enough to hear, gasped and pressed closer to the phone. That's Mom. Is she okay? She was well enough to walk out of the clinic on her own, Lisa reported. She told the staff she needed to get to Boston urgently. We think she's trying to reach her sister's place, where she believes Emily might be. Hope transformed Emily's face. She's alive. I knew it. I knew she wasn't gone. After the call ended, Emily was nearly vibrating with renewed energy and hope. Mom's coming for me, she said with absolute conviction. She got away from James. It looks that way, Michael agreed, equally amazed by this turn of events. Your mom is incredibly strong, Emily. I told you, she said, a smile breaking through her solemn expression. She wouldn't leave me. Later that afternoon, they received permission to visit Emily's cat at the animal shelter. The reunion was joyful, with Oliver purring loudly as Emily examined him carefully for any signs of mistreatment. For the first time since Michael had met her, Emily looked fully like the 9-year-old child she was, uncomplicated joy replacing the too-adult worry that had characterized her expression. As they left the shelter, Officer Williams, who had driven them there, received an urgent radio call. His expression grew serious as he listened. Then he turned to Michael. "There's been a development," he said quietly. "Detective Morales wants you both back at your apartment immediately. She's meeting you there." "Is it about my mom?" Emily asked immediately, her perceptiveness once again evident. Williams nodded, his expression carefully neutral. "That's all I know, Emily. We should hurry." The drive back to Michael's apartment was tense, Emily alternating between excited speculation about her mother and nervous fidgeting. When they arrived, Lisa's car was already parked outside, and she was standing on the front steps with another woman. Emily stared through the patrol car window, her eyes widening. "Mom," she whispered, pressing her face against the glass in disbelief. It was indeed Catherine Patterson, looking battered and exhausted, her arm in a makeshift sling, but unmistakably alive. As Emily scrambled out of the car and ran toward her, Catherine knelt, opening her good arm to receive her daughter in a fierce embrace. "You're okay?" Emily kept saying, tears streaming down her face. "You're really okay." "I'm okay," Catherine confirmed, her own voice thick with emotion. "And so are you. That's all that matters." Michael hung back, watching the reunion with a complex mixture of emotions. Profound relief, happiness for Emily, and a strange sense of both fulfillment and impending loss. His role as Emily's protector was ending as suddenly as it had begun. Lisa approached him, her expression satisfied but serious. "She showed up at her sister's apartment in Boston this morning, learned Emily wasn't there, and somehow figured out she might be with you. We intercepted her on her way here." "And James?" "In custody," Lisa said with grim satisfaction. "Boston PD picked him up at a motel an hour ago. Sover, Mike. They're both safe." Catherine looked up then, meeting Michael's gaze over her daughter's head. The gratitude in her eyes was palpable, communicating what words couldn't adequately express. She whispered something to Emily, who nodded and stepped back, allowing her mother to approach Michael. "Mr. Donovan," Catherine said, extending her uninjured hand. "Emily tells me you've been her guardian angel." Michael took her hand gently. "Emily is the brave one. I just provided a safe place." "Sometimes that's all the difference in the world," Catherine replied softly. "Thank you for keeping her safe when I couldn't." As medical personnel arrived to properly assess Catherine's injuries, and Lisa began making arrangements for formal statements, Emily made her way back to Michael's side. She looked up at him with those serious eyes that had become so familiar in such a short time. "We're going to stay with Aunt Louise in Boston for a while," she said, "until Mom gets better and we figure out what happens next." "That sounds like a good plan," Michael assured her. "You'll be safe there." Emily nodded, then asked with heartbreaking directness, "Will I see you again after we leave?" Michael crouched down to her level. "If that's what you want, absolutely. This isn't goodbye, Emily. It's just see you later." She seemed to consider this carefully before nodding. "I'd like that. You're a good guardian angel." The simple statement, delivered with a child's straightforward sincerity, touched something deep in Michael's heart. Over the past 36 hours, this solemn, perceptive girl had somehow helped heal wounds he'd carried for 3 years, not through grand gestures or profound wisdom, but through her trust, her resilience, and her unwavering faith in the possibility of better things to come. As the small group moved toward the waiting ambulance, Emily looked back over her shoulder at Michael, raising her hand in a small wave. Michael returned the gesture, standing in the gently falling snow as the ambulance doors closed and the vehicle pulled away, carrying Emily and her mother toward whatever came next in their journey. He turned and walked slowly back to his apartment, which already felt strangely empty without Emily's presence. In the courtyard, the 2 snow angels they had created still lay side by side, their winged impressions gradually filling with fresh snowfall, the smaller one precise and carefully formed, the larger one more haphazard but with those oversized wings Emily had noted. Guardian angels, she had called them. Perhaps that's what they had been for each other during this brief, intense time. Protecting each other from the storm, both the literal one that had raged outside and the emotional ones that had brought them together in the first place. Michael paused to look at the snow angels one last time before entering his building. The connection he'd formed with Emily and, by extension, with Catherine, had changed something fundamental within him. For the first time since the Keller incident, he felt like he had managed to fulfill the most basic promise of his former oath, to protect and serve. It wasn't a complete healing, but it was a beginning, a step back toward the person he had once been before tragedy had derailed his life. Inside his apartment, the evidence of Emily's brief stay remained. The makeshift bed in the spare room, her careful arrangement of breakfast items on the counter, even the slight indentation in the couch where she had sat watching television. Michael moved through the rooms, not erasing these traces but acknowledging them, understanding that they represented not just the end of a crisis but the start of something new, a connection that would continue, albeit in a different form. His phone buzzed with a message from Lisa, Catherine Stable, both at hospital for overnight observation. Emily asked me to tell you she'll call tomorrow. You did good, Mike. Michael smiled, setting the phone down and looking out the window at the gently falling snow. Sometimes protection came in unexpected forms. A mall security guard finding a child in need. A mother teaching her daughter to document the truth. A camera capturing evidence. 2 snow angels side by side in a courtyard. All of them, in their own way, standing guard against the darkness, helping each other find the way through the storm. 3 weeks had passed since the dramatic reunion of Emily and Catherine Patterson. Winter had settled firmly over Portland, transforming the city into a landscape of pristine white, punctuated by the warm glow of holiday decorations. Michael Donovan stood outside Maine Medical Center, watching his breath form clouds in the frigid air as he gathered his courage to enter. This wasn't his first visit. He had come several times during Catherine's recovery, initially at Emily's insistent request, later because he found himself genuinely concerned for their welfare. Each visit had followed a similar pattern. Emily enthusiastically showing him her drawings or books, Catherine expressing heartfelt gratitude for his care of her daughter, careful conversations about everything except the subject that hovered between them. James Mercer and the Keller case. Today would be different. Catherine was being discharged, her physical recovery progressing well enough for her to leave the hospital. And she had asked specifically to speak with Michael alone before she and Emily left to stay with her sister in Boston. "It's time you knew everything," she had said during his last visit, her voice low to prevent Emily from overhearing as she colored nearby. About James. About what really happened that day at the Kellers. Michael found Catherine sitting on the edge of her hospital bed, a small suitcase packed beside her. Her physical transformation over the past 3 weeks was remarkable. The bruises had faded from her face, and her arm was no longer in a sling, though she still moved it gingerly. "Michael," she greeted him, her smile genuine but nervous. "Thank you for coming." "Of course," he replied, taking the chair opposite her. "Where's Emily?" "Louise took her to the cafeteria for ice cream. I thought it would be easier to talk without her here." Catherine's fingers twisted anxiously in her lap. "She's doing well, all things considered. The therapist says her resilience is extraordinary." "She's an extraordinary kid," Michael agreed. "She gets that from you." Catherine smiled briefly at the compliment before her expression grew serious. "James's preliminary hearing is next week. The prosecutor says with my testimony and Emily's photographs, there's no question he'll be held for trial." She paused. "But there's more to this story than what happened to us." "Much more." Michael nodded, giving her space to continue at her own pace. Catherine took a deep breath. "I met James 2 years ago at a support group for families affected by violence. I was there because of my first husband's death, cancer, but it turned aggressive and ugly at the end. James said he was there because his brother had been killed in a home invasion." She gave a bitter laugh. "That was a lie, like almost everything about him." "Why the support group?" Michael asked. "Was he targeting you specifically?" Catherine shook her head. "Not initially. He was using those groups to find vulnerable women, widows, single mothers, women without strong support systems. Easy targets for his manipulation." Her eyes met Michael's directly. "But once he realized my connection to Portland, to the neighborhood where the Kellers had lived, he became very interested in me. And later, after we moved in together and he found my newspaper clippings about the case, He became obsessed with finding out what I knew. Michael's pulse quickened. You had clippings about the Keller case? Catherine nodded. My late husband was a journalist with the Portland Press-Herald. He covered the story extensively, interviewed neighbors, did background research. He believed something wasn't right about the official narrative, that there were inconsistencies in how Thomas Keller was described by those who knew him versus how he was portrayed after the shooting. She reached for a small notebook on the bedside table, opening it to reveal news clippings and handwritten notes. David, my husband, he kept detailed records of his investigations, even the ones that never made it to print. After he died, I kept this notebook, partly as a memento, partly because I shared his sense that justice hadn't been fully served in the Keller case. Michael leaned forward, his attention completely focused. What kind of inconsistencies? Thomas Keller was described by everyone who knew him as a gentle man, devoted to his son, struggling with alcoholism but never violent, not even when drunk. He had no history of domestic disputes, no record of aggression. The sudden escalation to threatening his family with a gun didn't match anything in his past behavior. Michael had wondered about the same thing during the initial investigation, but the evidence had seemed clear. Thomas Keller had been holding a weapon, had refused to drop it when ordered, had created a situation where officers had to make split-second decisions. The weapon, Catherine continued, as if reading his thoughts. That was another inconsistency. Thomas Keller hated guns. His brother confirmed this after the incident but was largely ignored. The family had no registered firearms. So where did the gun come from? Michael asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer. From James, Catherine said flatly. Or more accurately, from Rick Richardson, James's friend, who worked security at Jamie's school. We found text messages on James's phone. Messages that the police now have, showing that James instructed Rick to plant the gun at the Keller house the morning of the incident. The revelation hit Michael like a physical blow. But why? What possible motive could James have had for setting up Thomas Keller? Catherine's expression darkened. Control. Power. The pleasure of manipulating people's lives. James is what psychologists call a malignant narcissist with sociopathic tendencies. He creates chaos and suffering because it makes him feel powerful. She paused. But there was also a more specific motive in the Keller case. James was having an affair with Amanda Keller, Thomas's wife. Michael sat back, stunned. This detail had never emerged in the investigation. How did you discover this? I found old photos on James's cloud storage. He's not as tech-savvy as he thinks. Catherine's voice hardened. The affair had been going on for months. James met Amanda through another support group. She was there for help with her husband's alcoholism. James saw an opportunity and took it. But Amanda was growing uncomfortable, wanted to end things, focus on her family. James couldn't accept that. The pieces were falling horrifically into place. So he orchestrated a situation where Thomas would appear dangerous, knowing the police would be called. Catherine nodded grimly. James called Thomas that morning, pretending to be a concerned friend from AA, saying someone had seen Amanda with another man. He deliberately provoked Thomas's insecurities, then kept calling, escalating the situation. Rick planted the gun where Thomas would find it. Then Amanda, genuinely frightened by her husband's uncharacteristic rage and the discovery of a weapon, called 911. And we responded exactly as James anticipated, Michael said, the realization settling like ice in his stomach. We saw an armed, agitated man refusing to comply with orders. James knew how police respond to reports of armed domestic disputes, Catherine confirmed. He counted on it. He wanted Thomas eliminated, leaving Amanda vulnerable and dependent. He didn't specifically plan for Jamie to be caught in the crossfire, but he didn't care about the risk to the child either. Michael stood abruptly, needing to move as the full implications washed over him. For 3 years, he had blamed himself for Jamie Keller's death, had carried the weight of a split-second decision made in a volatile situation. Now he learned that the entire scenario had been orchestrated by a sociopath for his own twisted purposes. After the shooting, James consoled Amanda, played the supportive friend, Catherine continued. But she was devastated. blamed herself for calling the police, couldn't bear to continue the relationship with James. She moved away within months. That's when James found a new target. Me. The door opened, interrupting their conversation. Emily bounded in, her face lighting up at the sight of Michael. "You came!" she exclaimed, rushing forward to give him a hug that had become their standard greeting. "I promised I would," he reminded her, returning the embrace gently. Louise Patterson followed more sedately, a slender woman with the same blonde hair as her sister but a more reserved demeanor. She nodded politely to Michael. "The car is packed and ready whenever you are," she told Catherine. Emily looked between the adults, her perceptive gaze noting the emotional atmosphere. "Were you talking about James?" she asked directly. "Yes," Catherine answered honestly. "And about what happens next for us." Emily turned to Michael, her expression serious. "We're going to Boston with Aunt Louise. But Mom says we might come back to Maine someday." She hesitated. "If we do, could we visit you?" "Any time," Michael promised. "And until then, we can write letters or talk on the phone if your mom says it's okay." Emily nodded, seemingly satisfied with this answer. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I made this for you, so you wouldn't forget." Michael unfolded it to find a carefully drawn picture of two snow angels side by side, one small, one large, with the words "Guardian Angels" written in Emily's neat handwriting across the top. "I won't forget," he said, his voice slightly rough with emotion. "Not ever." 6 months later, Michael stood in a crowded courthouse hallway, adjusting his tie nervously. The trial of James Mercer had entered its final phase, with closing arguments scheduled for that afternoon. Michael's testimony the previous week had been grueling but cathartic, describing the original Keller incident, explaining how it had ended his police career, and detailing his encounter with Emily and subsequent involvement in protecting her from James. The evidence against James was overwhelming. Rick Richardson had agreed to testify against his former friend in exchange for a reduced sentence, confirming Catherine's account of how they had manipulated events leading to Thomas Keller's fatal encounter with police. The text messages recovered from James's cloud storage provided damning proof of the conspiracy. And Emily's photographs, meticulously documenting the abuse she and her mother had suffered, had left the jury visibly shaken. "Officer Donovan?" Michael turned to find Amanda Keller standing nearby. She had returned to Portland to attend the trial, a quiet presence in the back of the courtroom each day. They had spoken briefly when she first arrived, an awkward but healing conversation for both of them. "Mrs. Keller," he acknowledged, still feeling a strange mix of emotions whenever he saw her. "And please, it's just Michael now." She nodded, stepping closer. "I wanted to thank you for your testimony, for helping to finally bring the truth to light." "I wish it had come sooner," Michael said quietly. "So do I." Her eyes held the hard-won wisdom that comes from surviving unimaginable loss. "But I've learned that truth finds its way out eventually. And Jamie would be pleased to know that his death ultimately led to justice, even if it took years." The mention of her son's name no longer sent a spike of pain through Michael's heart as it once would have. Instead, there was a solemn acceptance, a shared acknowledgement of the tragedy they had both been caught in. "How are the Pattersons doing?" Amanda asked. "I haven't seen them since they gave their testimony last week." "They're good," Michael replied, a small smile forming. "They moved back to Maine last month, Bath, not Portland. Close enough to visit regularly, far enough to feel like a fresh start. Emily's doing well in her new school, and Catherine has started teaching part-time at the community college. And you? How are you doing with all of this?" It was a question Michael had been asking himself frequently over the past months. The reopening of the Keller case, the revelations about James's manipulation, the formal exoneration that had followed. All of it had fundamentally changed how he viewed the tragedy that had defined the latter part of his life. "I'm healing," he said finally. "It's a process. Some days are better than others." Amanda nodded in understanding. "That never really stops, does it? The healing process. It just changes form over time." Before Michael could respond, the courtroom doors opened, and people began filing in for the afternoon session. Amanda touched his arm lightly. "Thank you again, Michael, for everything." As she walked away, Michael noticed Catherine and Emily entering the courthouse from the main doors. They spotted him immediately, Emily waving enthusiastically while Catherine offered a warm smile. The sight of them brought a now familiar warmth to his chest, a feeling of connection that had been missing from his life for far too long. "Michael," Emily called, hurrying toward him with the energy of a child who had been sitting too long in a car. At nearly 10 years old now, she had grown taller, her dark blonde hair longer and caught up in a neat braid. But her eyes remained the same, intelligent, observant, though now shining with a childlike joy that had been largely absent during their first days together. "Ready for the last day?" he asked, accepting her quick hug. Emily nodded solemnly. "Mom says after today, we can finally put this chapter behind us and focus on the next one." "Your mom is very wise," Michael said, glancing up as Catherine joined them. "She gets that from me?" Catherine replied with a small smile, the humor in her eyes a hard-won victory after everything she had endured. She looked remarkably different from the injured woman he had first truly met in the hospital room 6 months ago. The physical wounds had healed completely, and while the emotional ones would take much longer, there was a strength and serenity to her now that spoke of someone reclaiming her life. "How was the drive from Bath?" Michael asked as they moved toward the courtroom. "Oliver complained the entire way," Emily reported seriously, referring to the black cat who had eventually been reunited with his family. "He hates his carrier." "He's not the only one who complained," Catherine added with a meaningful look at her daughter, who grinned unrepentantly. "The back seat is boring," she explained to Michael. "And Mom wouldn't let me bring my tablet." The normalcy of the exchange, a mother and daughter having typical disagreements about car ride entertainment, struck Michael as perhaps the most healing thing of all. After everything they had been through, these small, ordinary moments represented a triumph over the chaos and fear James had brought into their lives. Inside the courtroom, they took their seats in the front row. James was already at the defense table, his once imposing presence diminished by months in custody and the weight of overwhelming evidence against him. He glanced back once, his gaze passing over them with little recognition, as if they were merely props in a drama centered around himself. As the judge entered and proceedings began, Emily slipped her hand into Michael's, a gesture that had become commonplace during their regular visits over the past months. On her other side, Catherine reached over to squeeze her daughter's shoulder reassuringly. The three of them, connected by circumstance and choice, faced together the man who had caused such pain in all their lives. The closing arguments proceeded as expected, the prosecutor methodically outlining the mountain of evidence against James, the defense making a half-hearted attempt to suggest reasonable doubt. When the jury was finally sent out to deliberate, everyone expected a quick verdict. Outside in the hallway, Michael, Catherine, and Emily sat together on a bench, maintaining the companionable silence they had developed during their time together. There was no need to rehash the evidence or speculate on the outcome. Instead, they simply existed in the moment, drawing strength from each other's presence. "Whatever happens in there," Catherine said finally, "it doesn't change what we've already accomplished. We're free of him, regardless of the verdict." Michael nodded in agreement. "You rebuilt your lives. That's the real victory." Emily, who had been unusually quiet, looked up at both adults with her characteristic directness. "Are we still going for ice cream after this? No matter what the jury says?" The simple question, so childlike in its priorities, made both Catherine and Michael laugh, a genuine release of tension that felt like a gift. "Absolutely," Catherine assured her. "Ice cream is non-negotiable." "Good," Emily said with satisfaction, "because I've been thinking about chocolate chip cookie dough all morning." True to predictions, the jury returned after less than 2 hours. Everyone filed back into the courtroom, a tense silence falling as the judge asked for the verdict. "On the charge of attempted murder in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty." As the list of convictions continued, assault, kidnapping, conspiracy, and finally, in connection with the reopened Keller case, conspiracy to commit murder. Michael felt a weight lifting from his shoulders with each pronouncement. It wasn't just about punishment for James. It was about vindication for Thomas Keller, for Jamie, for Catherine and Emily, and in some ways, for Michael himself. When it was over and James was led away in handcuffs, looking small and ordinary without his facade of charm and control, Emily tugged on Michael's sleeve. "Is it ice cream time now?" she asked, her priorities firmly established. "Definitely ice cream time," Michael agreed, standing and offering his hand to Catherine, who took it with a smile. Outside the courthouse, reporters had gathered, hoping for statements from the key witnesses. Michael stepped forward to shield Catherine and Emily from the cameras, but Catherine placed a gentle hand on his arm. "It's okay," she said. "We have nothing to hide anymore." She addressed the reporters briefly, her words measured and dignified. "Justice was served today, not just for my daughter and me, but for all of James Mercer's victims, including the Keller family. We ask for privacy as we continue to heal and rebuild our lives." As they walked away from the courthouse toward a small ice cream shop on the corner, Emily between them, Michael reflected on the strange, painful, yet ultimately redemptive journey that had brought them to this moment. "Thank you," he said quietly to Catherine. She glanced at him with a questioning smile. "For what specifically?" "For trusting me with your story, for letting me be part of your lives. For—" he hesitated, searching for the right words. "For helping me find my way back to myself." Catherine's expression softened with understanding. "I think we all helped each other find our way back, or maybe forward is more accurate." Ahead of them, Emily had reached the ice cream shop and turned back to wave impatiently. "Come on. They have a new flavor today." They quickened their pace to join her, stepping into the bright, cheerful shop that smelled of sugar cones and possibilities. As Michael watched Emily deliberate with intense concentration over her choice of flavors, Catherine beside her suggesting increasingly outlandish combinations that made her daughter giggle, he felt a sense of peace that had eluded him for 3 years. The Keller case would always be part of him, the tragedy of that day, the split-second decision that couldn't be undone even with the knowledge that it had been engineered by James's manipulation. But it no longer defined him completely. There was room now for other things. For friendship, for mentorship, for the simple joy of ice cream on a summer afternoon with people who mattered deeply to him. Later, as they sat at a small table outside the shop, Emily regaled them with elaborate plans for her upcoming 10th birthday party, complete with hand gestures that threatened her precariously balanced ice cream cone. Catherine caught Michael's eye over their daughter's head, her expression conveying silent understanding and gratitude. In that moment, Michael realized that they had created something precious together. Not a conventional family, perhaps, but a chosen connection built on mutual respect, shared experience, and genuine caring. The guardian angels from Emily's drawing had evolved into something real and enduring. The future remained unwritten. Catherine was establishing her new teaching career. Michael had recently accepted a position with the police department's community outreach division, and Emily was thriving in her new school, her natural intelligence and resilience helping her adapt and grow beyond the trauma of her early years. Whatever paths they took from here, Michael knew with certainty that they would remain in each other's lives, not bound by the trauma that had initially connected them, but by the healing they had found together. Emily finished her ice cream and looked up at the adults with chocolate-smeared satisfaction. "What now?" she asked, the question containing all the openness and possibility of a story just beginning rather than ending. "Now," Catherine said, gently wiping her daughter's face with a napkin. "We go home." The simple word home carried profound meaning. Not just a physical place, but a state of being, of belonging, of safety hard-won and fiercely protected. As they walked together through the summer afternoon, the courthouse and its ghosts receding behind them, Michael thought of snow angels made months ago. Their impressions long since melted away, but their message preserved in Emily's careful drawing and in the bonds they had formed. Guardian angels, Emily had called them. Looking at the resilient woman and remarkable child beside him, Michael thought perhaps that's what they had all been for each other. Guardians against the darkness, guides through the storm, companions on the journey toward whatever light awaited beyond.